So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Invincible, so let's start the series. The sound of footsteps reverberated in the empty corridor. It was dark in the corridor until a flaming flame lit it up. The light itself made the current path and the surrounding walls visible. With a heavy sigh that reverberated throughout the dark cave, a towering demon wearing a trench coat muttered, "You humans are quite cunning creatures yourselves," as he guided the torch in his line of sight. The demon, who goes by the name Damien Darkblood, is a visitor from the chaotic realm that almost everyone may refer to as Hell. This cave was not meant for him. Actually, he didn't, but he had to. Anything that involves demons is his responsibility. Humans on this planet start to dream about meeting monsters or performing deadly rituals in an effort to discover more about the unknown. Their curiosity leads to their demise. They go on adventures with their youthful friends, but because of their own disdain for the paranormal, they end up dead. Because what they are searching for and what they think are fairy tales would give them a dose of reality. Furthermore, he was currently staggering through the hallway. Human blood was plastered on the walls and bodies littered the rocky cave floors. Some were in contact, some were apart. Fear was the sole expression on the faces of those who lived with their eyes open. "Pardon me." Darkblood walked carefully toward the disfigured body of a woman. He closed the horrified eyes and bowed slightly, trying to calm her soul from seeing the terrible mess any longer. Unfortunately, after seeing the life she had loved ripped away by whatever it was that attacked her and the others, the soul can never truly rest. With his hat cocked, Darkblood, the demon looked grimly at the trail of blood that was slowly flowing from the female's mouth. He dipped a clawed finger in the blood. Exclamation point. A faint image appeared. The vision that was replaying in his mind was the last sight the woman saw before she died. The image showed countless people shouting. The veiled members of this satanic cult all made an effort to escape. Pushing and fighting with each other in desperation. The lights blinked briefly, dark and murky, and then died. "Poor fool," Darkblood remarked as he stood up. He muttered, didn't even make it close to the exit, and shook his head. He stood up, glanced forward, and went on. He glanced around, taking in the corpses and the deep claw marks on the wall. A beast seems to have been released. He hesitated again and touched one of the hollowed-out gashes before grimacing. A trace of demonic strength. The detective from Hell had the same sense of demonic energy. After all, he was almost born of it. But why do these wall cuts seem so much more deadly? What were these humans playing with that caused this creature to emerge for slaughter? How stupid of them. Then he saw the shattered remains of two large, elaborate doors adjacent to a large hole in the wall. Suddenly, Damien Darkblood heard a cry and frowned. Was that a cry from a child? As he entered the pit, his eyes dropped. Bundles and clusters of bodies huddled in a circle. These disfigured bodies included young people, the old, and the elderly. Oddly, all hands, ripped or whole, pointed in the direction of the circle's center. Darkblood was shocked to see a baby boy in the middle of the puddle created by the victim's blood leak. The boy was curled up in the blood among the bodies. The blonde hair, of course, stood out against the terrifying crimson. 3 marks were grazed on both cheeks. When the baby finally heard movement, he stopped crying and opened his eyes. Bright baby blues were innocently staring into the detective's sharp white eyes. "Gah!" The baby waved its fat arms at the demon in a friendly gesture. Darkblood came over and using one hand to slowly raise the baby while holding the torch, disregarding the blood that now stained his sleeve. He held the cooing child and looked about. The demonic force, or even a trace of it, was no more. How strange! With a grunt, he returned his attention to the baby. The baby inclined its head. As dark blood kept moving on the blood-stained floor, he said, "A demon enters a cave of a satanic cult, only to face an angel that bathes in a puddle of blood, which was surrounded by corpses." What an interesting story. The only sounds in the dark corridor as they left the room were the baby's giggling noises. Who is the child? Who is he? For the time being, only time will tell. Yes, for now only. Chapter 2. Hey, Dad, why are we all the way out here? Are we going hunting? You're taking me hunting, aren't you? I knew it. Can I catch a big wolf to show off at school? That will really impress Kate-chan, can I? Can I? I'm not your dad and we are not hunting either. You told me that you wanted to go on a hike. I'm free now, so that is what we are doing. Naruto was muttering, "You are my dad, you are just refusing to say because you are embarrassed that mom left you or something." As he passed the giant behemoth that was his father, he shifted his little sack over his shoulder and grinned while observing the trees surrounding him. Talking endlessly and pointing to anything that catches his eye. "Look at the birds in the sky. Hey, Dad, look at the little ants carrying that big leaf, amazing. Hey, Dad, look at the dash." Dark blood gave the boy a weird look and silently followed. If a demon and a human child were walking side by side on an open forest path, people would yell in awe. Most likely shouting when the devil showed up and out of fear for the child passing by him. Naruto hurried as quickly as his short legs would permit and said, "Hey, look at that bug," before arriving at a big oak tree. He bent over. At eye level, a beetle was now scaling the bark. It was a peculiar beetle with a tiny curvature on its body and a large, nose. "This," Naruto replied, tilting his head. "A roach?" "A rhinoceros beetle," murmured Dark Blood, ignoring the squatting youngster. Hey, Naruto exclaimed after leaping back to his side. "That was actually my second guess. Yeah, I was definitely going to say the Ricorus beetle." Rhinoceros beetle. Out of the corner of Darkblood's vision, he sees the child flailing his hands menacingly and sticking his tongue out at him. After returning with the kid and his report to the Global Defense Agency all those years ago, he thought he would never see the child again, but the demon's lips twisted up and he said, "How funny." His conception of fate was different. Even when contained in the most secure facilities, surrounded by a large number of people, and under the radar scan of the most advanced sonars, the infant would always find his way. Dark Blood wasn't even certain whether it was magic or a spell because he knew that practically anything could become possible. This idea ended up being one of his few global favorites, which surprised him. The angry Naruto calmed down and pulled on his sleeve when he realized the monster was silent. "Hey, Dark Blood replied, looking down with his eyes softly shaded by his fedora. Naruto sighed with relief. "It's okay if Mom isn't here, you got me, and don't worry, I'm sure Mom will come back. She has to because moms are supposed to care for their children, or that is what I read so far." Pulling his arm away from the child's grasp, he replied, "I'm not your dad," as the upward curving lip fell into a straight line. Naruto's eye twitched as he exclaimed, "This is why Mom left." He grunted simply in answer. The child sighed as he took a scroll out of his bag and opened it to reveal his name inscribed on the top. "She has to, why did she leave this scroll behind if she didn't?" he asked. The old guy and his father claimed that this scroll showed up beside him on his birthday when he was a newborn. Naruto was positive that this was due to his mother. He was so sure. And when she comes back, he'll brag to his dad's wrinkled face that he was right. Naruto quickly put the scroll aside because he was bored and started chirping at the agitated giant next to him. It was nightfall before long. Wearing the pajamas that Mr. Donald had given him, Naruto plopped down in front of the bonfire, exhausted. A faint smile formed as his hands lifted to feel the warmth of the flames. "We got a lot to do tomorrow, Dad, we have so much to do, so make sure you get lots of rest." "I don't sleep," Dark Blood, still wearing his signature detective costume, stated as he sat down next to him. Uncomfortably, Naruto grabbed his father's tail and encircled his body with it. Dark Blood showed no signs of resistance. "I was thinking of concentrating on my powers while we are up here, since nobody is around. Look, my demon eyes just grew another circle, for some reason." Turning, a strange occurrence occurred. His naturally blue eyes pulsed and turned a little darker shade of purple, and his typically enormous pupils dilated as 3 circles slowly emerged and surrounded them. The child held out his arms sideways, but Dark Blood said nothing. Naruto concentrated. On the side, a large rock that was buried in the ground started to shake. His arm trembled a little and his eyes widened in a moment. Before it erupted from the ground, the large rock started to shake fiercely. Naruto raised his arm with the rock in response to his move. He swiftly flung his arm to the side, tossing the pebble off. The sound of the hit suddenly startled the nearby animals. "Yes," he said, thrusting his right fist into the air. "Go demon powers." Dark Blood gazed into the boy's eyes and frowned. He didn't even understand those eyes. When he first saw those eyes, he was a little cold, which surprised him because it had been a long time since he had felt that way. Those eyes appeared to be able to look straight through his soul. The demon just palmed Naruto's annoying smile and nodded. Before long, they noticed a glint. Wow! The night sky had a hint of white about it. With a solemn tone, Naruto exclaimed, "A shooting star," and began to push the monster. "Make a wish. That is a childish thing to do. Please bring back Mom to beat up Dad." Naruto exclaimed before huffing and bringing his hands together in prayer. Dark Blood turned away from the youngster and stared at the shooting star that was disappearing into the darkness. He glanced at Naruto, who was chanting for a woman to come out and beat him, and tipped his cap. A happy hum started. "I wish that these pleasant moments never end. I guess." Years later, New York City. A cloud of poison erupted from the jaws of a massive winged beast that roared as it flew through the smoke of a burning building. This incident was also being filmed and reported by the local news. The global defense agents were occupied with evacuating the city, caring for the wounded, and attempting to drive the beast away. A giant wyvern. "You got to be shitting me, I want everyone to double the speed. Move it. Move it. And Donald, where's the backup?" Cecil Stedman yelled. "Sir, Omni-Man and the Guardians of the Globe are handling their own fights elsewhere, but don't worry, I called in other help," Donald Ferguson told his boss while looking down at the equipment used for information transmitting. Cecil raised an eyebrow and let out a somewhat louder curse from within. In normal circumstances, no one could accomplish this feat. "Well, who the hell did you call?" Donald answered, "Already here, sir," grinning and tilting his glasses. Cecil remarked, squinting his eyes. As the massive reptilian beast went on the rampage, a humanoid appeared in the skies, freely descending from the clouds. "Hey, you stupid lizard." The beast heard nothing but the urge to do even more damage. That's enough of you. Universal pull. In front of a dozen witnesses, both physically and virtually, the beast was suddenly pulled into the sky by an invisible force. Furthermore, a little dot was heading toward the beast in hopes of encountering it in the middle of the expansive sky. The most advanced cameras zoomed into the picture to get a close-up view. As he plummeted so swiftly, the dot turned out to be a blond man figure wearing a dark cloak who thrashed wildly in the air. Strange yet fascinating, eyes with concentric rings emerged in the optical perception. Unfazed by the speed at which he was falling, the man grinned, quickly reached out with his right arm, and opened his palm. Cecil saw a ball of blue energy condensing and expanding rapidly until it was just a little bit smaller than the wyvern. "Well, if it isn't our local wild card," he replied. Donald said, "Yup," as he saw the supposed demon's kid, about whom everyone had been whispering, approach the beast. Naruto shouted, pulling his arm back. Unable to escape, the struggling wild wyvern could only watch as the mysterious stranger faced it head-on. "Get saged." The screeching beast's body was struck by the enormous energy ball. Giant Rasengan. In front of 1,000,000 spectators, witnesses saw the clouds in the sky split off from the blowback of the attack. Both the ground and the sky were struck by the shockwave. The Team Sage has shown up. Chapter 3. In an abandoned building, a young blonde girl was excitedly reading the newspaper. One page included a picture of the sage in midair, boldly lunging directly at some sort of flying reptilian monster. "Wowee! I can't believe that big bro Naruto made it in the newspaper yet again. And do you see the size of his Rasengan? It's almost the size of that boulder that he brought home last week," the girl said, gazing forward with sparkling eyes as she was absorbed in the photo of her sibling's awesomeness. "Come on," she said, waving both fists in encouragement and placing the newspaper under her armpit. "Come on. You are almost there." From the other side of the room, a green flat sheet stretched out on the floor, growing closer to its final position with each extension. A piece of old chalk was used to draw a line across the middle of the room. The small girl cheered as the green sheet kept moving closer to the designated line. After passing the newspaper with a yell, the young girl formed a new line that was superior to the one before it. The green sheet shuddered and then came out as a hunched, alien-looking figure. Amazing, Nikki, it is truly amazing," the kneeling figure whispered after inhaling deeply. He said, "I never expanded myself to that extent." As he gently stood up with the help of the little homeless girl. "I bet Naruto can expand his stomach to that extent," Nikki added, burst out laughing. The alien gave the girl a slight pinch on the cheek as a form of discipline. "Hey there now, little one, even on Mars, us Martians, do not talk bad about others behind their backs, so if we do not do it then why should humans do?" The cute little girl spat in Martian man's sympathetic face. "You say not to talk bad about others, but didn't you talk bad about him when he swiped away your chocolate bar when you weren't looking?" The alien's expression changed. "That was a rare moment which I had and apologized for." Nikki placed her hands on her hips and glanced at Martian Man. The stronger and supposedly superior species in front of her dared not look her in the eye. The girl looked down at her broken watch and smiled, asking, "Now that I think about it, where is Big Bro?" Her words, "He should be here by now." She sighed in despair before shouting in a fake disdain, "Now that he is famous I guess he is too good to hang out with the little people, right Martian Man?" According to Martian Man, who shook his head, Naruto should be at the serving, well, soup right now if I am correct. Right, Nikki said with a palming motion. In addition to being strong, her older brother was also very compassionate. Who would have guessed that a real-life superhero would be helping to feed the homeless and impoverished at a famous soup kitchen? Naruto Uzumaki was the real MVP. "He's a real man," said Nikki, her chest swollen. Martian Man grinned and remarked, "I suppose he is," as his bracelet started beeping loudly. "Danger?" he asked, rushing to his feet and heading for an open window. After remaining silent, Nikki sighed. "All right, take care, love ya," she said, gesturing to him. Martian Man turned to give her a final smile before he left the building. Then Nikki became agitated. Why does she never go on missions with Naruto or Martian Man? And she can help, too. The Beckwell Community Center soup kitchen. Just who is the sage, Amber? I mean, he is such a cool guy. To be able to fight that monster on equal grounds in the sky is so cool, don't you think? A teenage girl with spiky yellow hair cried in awe as he filled the bowl of a starving homeless man. As she carried dishes, a dark-skinned girl wearing an apron said, without saying anything, "I mean, just who is he? To be so badass, the world may never know the true name of our beloved hero." When Amber poured the next bowl, an old grandma nearly exploded with laughter. "Hey, hey, hey, Amber." Amber sighed and then looked at her fellow volunteer's stupid smile. "Can't you be serious, Naruto? We can't keep talking all day long. Just help me finish these meals," she urged. Before Naruto could say anything, an old guy with a cane in his hand and trembling voice said that Sage, the small hero in the cloak, had been mentioned. Sage was a kind fellow. "I remember when he saved my cat from up a tree when the police refused to help me. Sage gave me $50 just so I can buy my medication at the pharmacy," a delighted old woman said. She said, he even helped me cross that long road in downtown." What kind of superhero would do such a deed when he could be facing many other dangers, a kind one that is? Around the tables, a number of homeless people, both young and old, smiled as they thought of the teen team Sage. It used to make Amber happy to watch these poor people smile, but now they just make her angry. Like, really annoying. Naruto revealed the contents of his dark blue jacket as she turned to face him. On an orange blouse, the gorgeous Sage was grinning back at her. Amber almost threw her ladle at the stupid teen. With a smile, Naruto smacked the hand of an elderly woman who was trying to squeeze his cheeks away. He exclaimed, "Oh come on, Amber, I'm just having fun." After picking up the used cutlery, Amber said, "I never knew that praising yourself in such a manner would ever be described as fun." Although Naruto Uzumaki was certainly a prickly person, he is also well known for his kindness to the people of this city. He was also her first superpower-wielding companion. She knew his secret, yes, what was it? Because Naruto was foolish enough to tell her all those years ago while smiling as if it didn't matter. Although it was a big problem, she eventually lost her awe of Naruto following that realization and was able to see it regularly. He was a hero on the one hand, but he will always remain the dumb fool she loves on the other. "Hey Amber." She noticed Naruto's evasive attitude when she turned to look behind her. He pulled out a notepad and said, "If you buy me some food later, I'll give you an extremely rare Sage autograph." "You save people, for a living." Amber, frustrated by his stupidity, sprayed detergent on a round plate and exclaimed, "You are a hero that fights for, what, peace and justice. Yet you are unable to afford some food for yourself." The somber schoolgirl was approached by Naruto, who wrapped an arm around her shoulder. Then he answered, "Oh no, I do have the money, but, why spend it when I can use your money? Amber cursed at him 1,000,000 times in her heart. Even after Amber gave him a stupid shin kick, Naruto continued to smile. This extra day off from work might as well be spent with your kitchen pal. Today, let's just have a normal day. Guardians Headquarters. The Guardians of the Globe all drew back, breathing heavily as they stared at their shocking enemy. Even colder eyes were staring back at them from the towering, strong man in front of them. The strongest man on Earth, Omni-Man, was dressed in a red and white bodysuit. They did not perceive the stern and caring hero, instead, they saw merely an adversary. War Woman gripped her mace firmly in both hands and charged at the fiercest guy, haunted by spooky ideas. What was going on? Why was he attacking them? What on earth caused Omni-Man to issue the warning? At the same time, though, she knew they had fallen into his den. His trap. Gripping her teeth to avoid a flying punch, she spun quickly before aiming her mace at Omni-Man's skull. In an attempt to strike her in the heart, Omni-Man foolishly pushed the mace aside and pointed it at her chest. A red blur flew as the tyrant fist smacked nothing but air. As two massive fists swung down, Omni-Man looked up and said. He avoided the blows and then gave the man who was as physically powerful as he was a scowl. Once more, a red blur interrupted the strongest man's motion. Red Rush pulled back with the immortal just as Aquarius launched a water jet that may temporarily stop Omni-Man's motion. Aquarius gritted his teeth as he pushed ahead, the water jet became louder and more powerful. While Omni-Man was busy fending off the pressure strength of the blasted water, the Green Ghost managed to get behind him and launch several projectiles before phasing through the floor. Darkwing thoughtlessly pressed a button on his belt, and then a series of little explosions engulfed Omni-Man. Darkwing was sweating behind his mask, despite appearances. It was the riskiest combat they had fought thus far. And despite their combined efforts, Omni-Man managed to withstand all of these blows. What a beast! Out of the smoke came a white figure running toward Red Rush. Red Rush sidestepped and fought back with all his might and speed, then he let out a startling yell as two hands clamped down on the sides of his head. They were all upset when Red Rush started to leak blood from his nose. What seemed like an eternity of pain for Red Rush seemed like a century to his team. They would arrive too late. Martian Man made a thorough calculation at that same time and knew in his heart that they would fail. Unless there was a faster way. Martian Man hissed and quickly snatched something from behind him and hurled it. Omni-Man held on tighter, even as a string of blows from the struggling Red Rush landed on his chest. Even though his mouth was gushing blood, he decided to ignore the discomfort. The speedster was someone Omni-Man really wanted to kill, but before he could, his eyes widened as he felt something penetrate his body from behind. He was more hurt and more exposed. Before her comrade could collide with the wall behind her, the Green Ghost sprung to her feet and grabbed him. He yelled and shoved Red Rush away. Looking down again, Omni-Man grabbed for the black rod, but he halted as soon as he touched it. Through the anguish, Omni-Man stammered as he saw two strange eyes looking at him in his head. A weird coldness crept up his spine. The strongest guy distracted, and Immortal's shoulder pushed Omni-Guy away. Immortal's eyes were focused on the sticking stick as the greatest guy collided with a massive wall, knocking part of the wall down with him. All members, including the badly injured Red Rush, gazed incredulously at Martian Man before turning their attention to the fallen figure that started to rise. Is there a weapon that can actually pierce the toughest skin? Meanwhile, Naruto silently stared out into one direction. For a moment, he observed. His pupils shifted to mirror the circles surrounding them as his eyes constricted. Alien guy. As Amber walked back to the break room, she stretched and said, "We sure did feed a lot of people, Naruto. Now that you mentioned it before, I do feel kinda hungry now. Why don't we get something to eat?" Naruto. When I looked around the break room, nobody was there. Strange whipping sounds could be heard in the distance, and she could just make out a black shape out the window before it disappeared. Amber was quiet before continuing. Stay safe. Sage, Chapter 4. Veins stuck out of Omni-Man's forehead as he gripped the rod. The fact that he was unable to break it with his own strength was the most shocking. As he pulled the rod, blood started to trickle from the wound, and he finally pulled it out with a shout. His vision wavered for a second when the strange weapon was taken away, and then Martian Man charged at him. Martian Man's body transformed elastically, quickly encasing Omni-Man. The Guardians of the Globe were not even a step behind him. This was their chance. The two Titans, Immortal and War Woman, were the first to move. Omni-Man was knocked into War Woman when Immortal slammed him in the face with such fury. War Woman nailed Omni-Man's head from the side with a horizontal stroke of her mace, causing it to veer and flow from the wound. HUAH! Exclamation point. Omni-Man's vision wavered again, then quickly stabilized. He started strengthening his muscles right away. Because of the sudden expansion, Martian Man could not control enough force to further constrict and was blasted off. Darkwing ran toward the one weapon that had the potential to harm Omni-Man. He had to brace himself before his body struck the flying War Woman, but he could use it to attack or defend Omni-Man's position, or he might use it to assist one of his comrades. Both figures crashed into the wall as the impact drained Darkwing's lungs. After avoiding Aquarius' water blast, Omni-Man kicked Immortal aside, but as he turned, War Woman's mace swirled down. Without seeing, Omni-Man turned and grabbed the mace. The eyes of Green Ghost and Red Rush widened. Aquarius was his aim. Even though Red Rush's vision became a little fuzzy, he was still able to grab Green Ghost by the waist and dash for Aquarius. Aquarius froze when he saw War Woman's mace shoot toward him. "No!" the Green Ghost shouted, though her voice was warped by the speed at which she was moving. Green Ghost touched Aquarius back in a swirl of green and red at that exact moment. Omni-Man swung the mace, and the weapon phased across the Green Ghost, Aquarius, and Red Rush. In shades of red, green, and blue, the three members disappeared. "Why are you doing this?" Immortal pulled his arm back and took a powerful, quick step forward. Pulling his own arm back, Omni-Man tossed the useless weapon aside. The collision of the two giants' fists created a shockwave before they split apart. Just as they split, Darkwing flung his signature weapons at Omni-Man, who smacked them aside like toys and fell from the sky. There were explosions all around Omni-Man, but judging by his indifferent expression, none of them could hurt him. "Useless toys," Omni-Man muttered with a frown at Darkwing before turning to confront War Woman. "Tisk," said Darkwing as he swiftly took off his grappling hook and swung away. War Woman and Omni-Man gathered in the middle of the room. She didn't have time to get her weapon, thus it was physical fight after that. War Woman dodged past Omni-Man's furry hands before delivering her own blows. She dodged a strike and slammed a knee into Omni-Man's stabbed side. Omni-Man's body trembled at the wound being targeted, a phantom chill spread. He then retaliated with a fist swing, but the nimble Red Rush caught it and attacked Omni-Man from all angles. Omni-Man was about to capture Red Rush when a man suddenly materialized on the ground. Omni-Man was once again surrounded from behind by Martian Man. Green Ghost phased before Omni-Man with Darkwing at his side. Darkwing spun the black rod around in his hand and targeted it ferociously. When Omni-Man saw that lethal staff, he tipped his body in disdain and knocked the two figures away with his feet. Then Aquarius threw the black rod into the air, where War Woman snatched it and held onto it as it fell. She aimed down and stabbed Omni-Man in the thigh. Omni-Man screamed, but was cut off by the Immortal's massive fist. "That is enough," shouted Omni-Man fiercely as he was flung back and forth. After Martian Man was blasted away, Omni-Man flew, struck Immortal in the face, and then swung around to force War Woman's face into the earth. Then a red blur came, and Omni-Man swatted out like he was dealing with a fly. Though the strange eyes kept coming back to him, Omni-Man kept attacking everyone inside his field of vision. He forced his muscles to contract and work even though they were rigid. Aquarius tried to halt Omni-Man's movement with a blast of water. Omni-Man stomped and lifted an earthen wall to try to stop the pressured water. Grabbing it, he hurled it toward Aquarius. Green Ghost and Darkwing phased through the earth together, destroying the artificial barriers and launching an assault on Omni-Man's partner. Omni-Man let out a sigh, pulled the rod out, and threw it out of their hands, then turned to face the emerging Martian Man. He accelerated toward Martian Man. Martian Man and Omni-Man met in a flash. A clenched fist aimed at the alien's vital core as it dropped. Martian Man. War Woman sprang from the floor and rushed forward, the Immortal trailing after. Red Rush ran too, but as his vision failed, his form stumbled suddenly. His heart sank uneasily as he tried desperately to get moving again. Darkwing, Aquarius, and Green Ghost are not far behind. He raised his palms, realizing that Aquarius couldn't muster enough water to outrun that blow. The fist came closer, and for a moment, Martian Man's life flashed. He recalled the terrible experience of being exiled from his family due to a crime he had not committed. Subsequently, he recalled his initial encounter with the Global Defense Agency on Earth. His mind shifted to his pleasant memories of his life, his experiences with friendly strangers, and his new friends. A memory of a blonde child who was joyful and giggling while recounting all of his adventures with his monster father. Then he remembered how he had met a homeless little girl in need who had smiled for the first time when he showed her what he could do. "I apologize, Nikki, but this is where my journey will come to an end." The fist came steadily closer. Martian Man's right shoulder was suddenly clapped by a kind hand. Then he was pushed away. A little shockwave followed a massive roar. A young man in front of Omni-Man closed his eyes and clasped his arms together, deflecting his arm to the side. A dark shroud flowed from behind the young guy as he straightened his posture, and the shock's debris flew in all directions. The figure touched Omni-Man's chest with both palms. Eyes opened. An inexplicable feeling filled Omni-Man's heart as he finally saw the cold eyes that had twice flashed over his consciousness. He punched the person who dared to stop him from being killed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Before the hit, a frosty voice was announced. "Almighty. Push." After being repelled, a strong force moved through Omni-Man's body. Omni-Man was cruelly thrown flying away at high speeds as the entire structure and range trembled backwards before collapsing, as did the earth beneath him and the walls behind him. As the unstoppable invisible force traveled in one direction, everything in Omni-Man's path dispersed. A dust cloud arose behind the man. Once the dust had settled, Green Ghost and Aquarius were seen helping the squirming Red rush to his feet. An injured immortal pulled War Woman up as she snapped her fractured nose back into place with a grunt. Darkwing retrieved the black rod and War Woman's mace, then looked ahead, his eyes wide with amazement. They could see the wide sky and the destroyed ground as the sun's rays landed on each of their faces. The Martian man limped up to his partner. His codename was N. Sage. After he opened his mouth, Naruto, sometimes known as Sage, simply stared ahead without responding. He opened and closed his hands, his purple-ringed, dark-shaded eyes staring into space. During his attack, all that existed was destroyed. A far-off peak appeared in Sage's vision, and he whispered. He slammed his fist down right away. A circle with strange symbols scattered all around it. A blast of smoke filled the chamber and was blown away by the wind, revealing a massive dark green beast on all fours beside the sage. The monstrous creature resembled the chameleon species, but it was changed. The chameleon's body tilted, its tattered wings started to tremble, and the end of its tail, which looked like a snake's head, hissed as a long tongue slipped out of its mouth. The image of its summoner and a sharp horn perforated by numerous black rods pointing in the air were locked upon by a single, ringed, dark purple eye that searched the room. The sage patted his summon's head and looked at the heroes who were looking at him. Sage sighed and said, "We have to move, I can already see that he is about to get up, even though he's struggling." Sage didn't even wait for an agreement before waving his hand. The chimera-like chameleon made a sound, then opened its mouth and began rapidly to scoop up all the guardians of the globe, including the sage. After a moment of hesitation, the massive chameleon looked around to make sure it had every creature. Only the largely undamaged remains of the former Guardian's headquarters remained as it swiftly started to blend in with the surroundings and soon slid away. Omni-Man dragged himself out of the crater and crouched on the mountainside, spitting fresh blood from his lips as he returned to his position. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. After a time, Hard Eyes looked back into the world. Global Defense Agency Headquarters. Numerous groups of global defense agents gathered and aimed their weapons at the massive beast that had broken inside the base after hearing an alarm. Cecil Stedman strode ahead, ordering the agents to dismount, Donald walking behind him. The large chameleon sat down on its belly and opened its jaws just as Donald was going to speak again. "Remain calm. Everybody, stand down. This creature is one of ours and not the enemy." Donald and Cecil stared as Sage and the badly injured guardians of the globe members came out. "Medic team, get a move already." Cecil scowled as he looked at the circumstance. "What are you waiting for, people? You got the orders, move it. Move it. Move it." Donald shot back when the paramedics quickly evaluated the hero's condition and led them to the hospital area. Sage and Martian Man looked solemnly into the director's eyes. "I want all the details, nothing left behind," Cecil insisted, even though it wasn't immediately apparent. Cecil's heart was also severely shattered. Ready to listen and take notes, Donald took out his old-fashioned notepad. Sage was about to speak when his phone started to vibrate. He was about to ignore it when he caught a glimpse of Martian Man's charming smile. "I'll explain first, go answer," he said. Sage's eyes softened, then returned to their seriousness as he asked the old man for permission. "You got 5 minutes," Cecil replied with a sigh after a little pause. He turned and questioned the Martian man, who dutifully answered his queries. As he jotted down the details, Donald's face shifted from worry to disbelief. Cecil stood there as amazed as Martian Man began to explain. Sage stepped forward to answer his phone. After calming down, he answered the phone with a happy, "Hey Kate-chan. Sorry I didn't answer your calls, I was caught off by something," seriously, in his voice. The other side was silent until a concerned voice yelled, "Naruto? Are you okay?" Naruto's face trembled before he pretended to chuckle. "Oh, you know me, I'm just feeling peachy. Anyway, I'll call you back later, I got some things to work out with the old man," he replied. He cut the call short, then rubbed his temple. Can't really calm down, it's hard to hide your feelings when you just faced the strongest man in the world. Kate-chan is definitely going to ask me about this later, she can see through me like paper, seriously, so troublesome. As soon as his code name was mentioned, a serious expression returned to his face. Sage then went on to discuss his thoughts on this whole strange story. Even the thought that the man who was regarded as the greatest hero was involved in the incident broke his own heart. Shown to be the greatest traitor in the world, maybe it was a trick of the mind. Was he forced to do it? But Naruto knew one thing for sure, the world was about to be completely upended. Chapter 5. Cecil Stedman paused his work in his office, his gaze fixed on something thoughtful. He was accompanied as usual by Donald, who gave him the latest on events that were relevant to their agency. When the director banged his fist against his desk, he merely jumped a little. "Sir?" asked Donald. Cecil pushed all his papers to the side, stood up, and grunted as he made his way to the window adjacent. Behind him, Donald pondered what to say next, but in the end, the usually talkative man himself was found to remain mute. Having spent so much time with Cecil, Donald was acutely aware of his current state of mind. "The surveillance team that you ordered has already moved out, from Omni-Man's house, and far in a long range, everything within the site will be monitored per orders given," Donald said with a sigh as he handed over his most recent report. "Good, good," Cecil murmured, nodding, and then he folded his arms and said, "The Guardians." Donald smiled slightly. "The Guardians are also getting the best treatment that we are securing for them," he said. "They should be up and running in no time, these guys are the real hikers, sir, you won't need to worry about them." Cecil looked at Omni-Man and asked, "And Omni-Man?" Donald exhaled. "Prior to his release, including the usage of our medical equipment, his injuries have unfortunately fully healed, sir, we brought him back as good as new." The director nodded with a glum expression. I just don't understand, sir, we don't have the full story, but with the Guardian incident, we could have dash." Cecil gave his assistant a serious look. "We could have what? Restrain the most powerful man on the planet? You and I both know that's not going to happen because we both know that man will mostly wipe out many if not all of us before we can do something." As Donald heard and witnessed Omni-Man's abilities throughout the years, a complicated feeling emerged in him that he could not ignore. That such a proud ally would become such a dangerous enemy of the world's defense, or perhaps he should say the world, is shocking, nevertheless. Cecil's expression was slightly annoyed as well. After Cecil, Donald said, "I don't know why this was happening," and followed him to the door. As they walked, they saw a number of Global Defense Agency personnel going about their work. Some people are carrying dangerous technology. Those who investigate and look through information about every paranormal event that occurs worldwide. Scientists, doctors, researchers, and a number of other agents with specialized expertise have gone around the agency in order to perform their jobs. The composed director, gripping his fist, was also caught up in the 3-week-long emotional tornado. He will never forget the smile Omni-Man gave him when they first started taking care of him. All they could do was help the man get better. Very few of the agents present knew what had transpired, even though most of them knew it had happened. They thought that an unknown enemy had ambushed the Guardians of the Globe, including Omni-Man, because they witnessed the heroes suffering severe wounds. Fortunately, Cecil was able to defuse the situation with Donald's help, but even 3 weeks later, almost everyone in the agency knew about it. Since he cannot escape the facts, he needs to look into it extensively and figure out why Omni-Man did this in the first place. Let everyone concoct their own hypotheses and make up the reports, including Sage, Donald, and the Guardians of the Globe. If it were known that Omni-Man had turned around and attacked his supporters, the resulting chaos would be immense. The greatest hero in the world becomes a traitor. The graphic titles and headlines flew through Cecil's mind, but for now, everything else pertaining to the reality of this situation must remain sealed. Donald. I've already spoken with the Guardians and Sage, and Omni-Man is remaining silent, likely to prevent his wife and son from learning, so be sure to keep a close watch on that boy. If the child is like his father, we'll have 2 Viltrumites to contend with, but I can handle Deborah. Donald gave it a somber glance. Having one Omni-Man was awful enough, but having another one. But when Donald had first met Mark Grayson, he remembered him as a polite young man with a good head over his shoulders. He couldn't have anything to do with whatever scheme his father was up to, could he? Moreover, it was said that Mark's skills had only lately been identified. I'll do it, sir. My team will likewise do everything in their power to locate the answers we want. After all, Omni-Man wouldn't have attacked us for no reason, so why is he attacking us now? He had plenty of time to accomplish it if he so desired, so why act now? He paused, his palm on his transmitter, and said, "We will do all in our power to locate the answers." A message had been received. Cecil scowled and said, "What is it now?" "There is some kind of attack that is happening downtown. A strange portal has appeared and groups of what appears to be aliens are coming out of it, wielding energy weapons. Multiple casualties were made." "You don't have to worry about that," a bored voice murmured suddenly behind him. "Son of a dash." Without hesitation, Donald drew his handgun and aimed it. Cecil lowered Donald's hand coolly and looked at their visitor. Agents in the area quickly understood the newcomer would approach, but Cecil ordered them to keep away. A familiar figure in a trench coat stood in front of them. "Damien Darkblood," Cecil answered with a frown, "what can I do for you?" The demon investigator tilted his fedora and remarked, "This matter, I am quite invested in it, though I feel like that boy is keeping some details hidden from me." Darkblood stepped forward a few paces and said, "Want to respond?" As he looked down at Cecil's calm expression. Cecil stood calmly, too calmly, actually, and turned to face the demon investigator. "The news has been classified as top secret. Sorry to get your hopes up, but you won't be getting any answers from me," he stated. After that, the two competed in a standstill. Looking straight into each other's eyes, not lowering his defenses, Donald also came forward and asked, "What do you mean by, 'You don't have to worry about that,' statement?" he inquired. Darkblood turned his head away from the director and cocked it toward Donald. "The boy should be heading there right now along with his team," he said. "Team Teens," Donald said, raising his glasses. The investigator whispered a curse in his heart as he turned away from Cecil. How could he prevent this old devil Holmes from finding out? Damien Darkblood was a brilliant detective, but the demon was too curious. If Darkblood investigates this more, Omni-Man might Cecil clenched his jaw and walked away. Donald rushed after. Dark Blood just tilted his fedora thoughtfully when he saw that the two were not listening to him. His tail moved lightly behind him. He was unable to stop thinking, why would Naruto ever have kept information from him? Downtown, Mark Grayson, also known as Invincible, flew quickly across the waves and into the skies. He had the opportunity to save lives because his mother kept him at home while his father healed. When he saw on the TV that there had been an attack, he dressed himself and went downtown. When he eventually reached the downtown area and seen a real alien army marching out of the portal, his eyes widened. The attackers were firing beams at the streets, houses, and even citizens. Even when the police were using guns to aid the residents in their escape, their attempts proved fruitless. A police car was abruptly launched into the air, and blood spilled onto the ground from all around the area. Those unfortunate enough to be in the aliens' line of sight were shot as rays effectively sliced their limbs. Invincible's fist clenched at the sight. He took several deep breaths, then he jumped right into the fray. Among the throng of runners he saw after landing was a mother carrying a toddler in her arms and limping. As beams of energy flew everywhere, Invincible's heart constricted as he saw one heading straight for the two of them. He was about to run in when he got blasted out. As he shot through the air, the running mother instinctively avoided the beam, but she collapsed suddenly after the blow behind her. She landed on her sides to shield her baby. The sound of his pleas, "Someone, somebody. Assist me. Get my son out of danger," crushed her heart, but despite the mother's cries, everyone was fleeing. The mother tried to stand up again, but she was in too much pain. But the mother looked at her baby's face, then bit her lip, stood up firmly, and hobbled away. Coughing, Invincible leaped to his feet and exclaimed, "The two," he raised his head quickly. From a distance, an extraterrestrial smirked at the staggering woman. Invincible said, "No, don't," and held out a terrified hand. He flew back up quickly, but as he did so, he saw an alien flying at an old woman who was crawling on the ground. Invincible's face was contorted with fear and concern. Who would he save? Mother and son, or the elderly? At that moment, his body moved on its own. The old woman looked up feebly to see the green alien's vicious grin. No. But then a man wearing a blue and yellow outfit held her compassionately. Invincible had a thought as he embraced the old man. keep it together," he exclaimed. The mother and son. He turned back unwillingly, expecting to see the corpses, and his eyes widened. In a moment, he saw a bunch of aliens carry their tanks and weaponry as they flew through the air above him. Their eyes were wide with disbelief, and their mouths were undoubtedly open to scream. Across the battlefield, the words, "You. This has gone far enough," echoed. They all gazed in the same direction, whether they were police officers, foreigners, or citizens. The aliens, in particular, make a lot of noise when their own members fly, crash, and die. As they looked, they pondered what had caused them to become this way. The injured mother thought her life and that of her kid were over, but when she looked up, she saw. She held her crying baby feebly and muttered the name of the person in front of her. Sage. Sage smiled and lifted the mother gently. "I'll get you to safety," he whispered quietly. "It's okay." Then, with the wife and baby in tow, Sage went up to the policeman. Suddenly, a couple of energy beams came at Sage from behind. "Look, oh you dash!" Invincible's eyes became wide, and then, to his own astonishment, the beams suddenly dispersed throughout the atmosphere. Squinting his eyes, the alien military chief exclaimed, before shouting orders. The civilians kept running while the injured were forced to lie behind. Panic ensued as many beams were ejected. However, Sage approached the police in silence before extending his hand. Once again, the rays were dispersed as if they were encountering an invisible force. In the middle, Sage was seen walking without displaying any signs of worry as he took the woman to a police cruiser. The scene was truly amazing since all of the fired beams were swept away in time for everyone who was still alive, even the injured, to escape. The words, "My God," came out. When it was all over, everyone looked at the sage, who grinned broadly. Invincible, who also moved, gave the elderly woman to a neighboring ambulance while staring at Sage in awe. Who is this guy? After giving the mother and the baby to the surprised police officer, Sage turned around and began to approach the amazed aliens. Thank you. Sage initially smiled, but his eyes clouded when he observed the variety of dead on the ground. Men, women, and older folks. To the chagrin of the sage, even children were scattered across the terrain, their motionless bodies leaking blood. Sage then held out his arm to an alien who was stepping over the skull of a dead child. The alien's body was suddenly pulled away. In front of everyone, Sage grabbed the alien in mid-flight by the neck. The alien made gasping noises as he desperately gripped the arm that was strangling him. Sage saw the futility of the effort and squinted his rippling eyes at the frightened alien. Not even the children, for that. I won't show any mercy. Sage slammed the alien down and pushed the earth outward, causing dust to spew. He remarked, when he saw an alien tank pointing in his direction. The tank was hit back with a quick motion, causing it to explode and kill multiple nearby aliens. Don't you dare. Invincible landed near Sage before he flinched at the disfigured alien body below. Don't worry, I got your back. Invincible waved his hands up at the Sage and shook his head. Sage stood up again and stepped back until he and Invincible were standing side by side. The aliens soon surrounded the two, their looks angry and vindictive. After glancing at the stranger, Sage turned his attention to the nearby aliens. All right then, whoever you are, the two of us are against this large army. My team is almost here, so we have to stall for time. You think you can keep up? Invincible's heart pounded as he raised his hands higher, not sure if it was fear or happiness that rushed through his veins. I don't know, but I'll be damned if I just stand back and watch so many people get hurt. I'll fight or my name isn't Invincible. Sage looked astonished, then grinned. He slammed a fist into his open palm and exclaimed, Invincible. That's your name. That's a pretty perverted title. All right then, let's do this. These aliens are about to be saged. Everywhere there was red growth, someone yelled a command. Gritting his teeth, Invincible let out a howl. Sage's eyes sparkled, and then he threw himself out too. Earth simply won the war downtown. Chapter 6. A shirtless Naruto watched with narrowed eyes as he struck a punching bag multiple times. 1, 2, 3, 4. The quick blows dented the striking back, which quickly regained its previous shape. He suddenly tensed his upper muscles and began striking. One strike after another struck, shredding the material as the punching bag could no longer withstand the force of the impact. The lowest portion of the apparatus then collapsed to the ground, revealing its inside. Just knocked out another bag, bro. Naruto said, pausing and casting an embarrassed glance back. Dang. Another one, bro. That's like, the 2258th bro. You don't have to worry bro, 'cause I'm rich bro. Really bro. Thanks for not charging me bro. Then Naruto high-fived the brother. Samantha Eve Wilkins and Kate Cha, who were conversing on the couch, simply rolled their eyes at this circumstance. Eve snorted and laughed. Kate gazed, her eyes glistening. The women looked at each other. Boys, ignoring the gals, the two shirtless, sweating guys smiled and grasped each other's arms. They quickly became aware that they were being stared at by both of their girlfriends. Brothers before hoes, said the two law-abiding brothers. I think these boys don't appreciate us, Eve stated, turning to face her friend. She then raised and clasped her right palm. The fist glowed pink as it was rapidly filled with electricity. What did you say about us? Hey Kate, she said. Kate folded her arms and looked up. She glared at the two and replied, yeah, I also think that our men don't appreciate us. Come on, babe, we don't mean that, Rex remarked with a giggle before going up to Eve and kissing her. Although Eve scowled as they kissed, she finally closed her eyes and yielded to his efforts. The complete antithesis of the confident Rex. We don't really mean it, Databeo, Naruto remarked as he awkwardly stood up in front of Kate. Kate's already phony tough visage broke completely as she observed the nervous hero. Her face softened. Ignoring the sound of Eve and Rex making love, Naruto reddened a little and cursed him inwardly. Why was Rex so confident? The guy was a total failure. Kate's lips curved up as her eyes blinked at her devil boyfriend. Slowly, Naruto bent down. He swallowed after gently holding Kate's cheeks. Naruto's heart beat as he gazed at the face that had enthralled him since he was a small child. As a child, he always liked Kate, followed her about, and tried to get her to like him for being such a fool. He thought her name, Kate Cha, sounded really pleasant. He always tried to be with her, whether it was playing or something else, and when he was a little older, he asked her out. Her rejection, however, didn't stop Naruto in the least, rather, it gave him more motivation. When he learned that they both possessed similar cloning skills, his heart was about to burst. Then he questioned her again. Still, she gave him a shy grin and rejected him again. In their early years, when they were embarking on adventures and forming kids' team, when they were fighting monsters, bad guys, and everything evil, he clung to her like glue and barely looked at her. Naruto gave Kate a silly smile while thinking back on his past hardships and attempts, despite the fact that they haven't dated in a few years. He always thought of the good and bad occasions he had shared with her when he was with her. Even though Naruto Uzumaki is a total mess in relationships, he would stop at nothing to make her happy. I still can't believe that, you're finally mine, that Kate Cha, the most amazing and the most beautiful girl that I have ever known, actually agreed to date a dumb guy like me. It makes me so happy, he gently stroked her forehead. They looked at one another with only love and affection in their eyes. Naruto's cheeks turned the color of fresh tomatoes as he blurted out the last few sentences and then paused. I love you, you mean everything in the world to me, you're like the moon to my sun, you know, I would give up everything just to be with you and make you happy. See can I kiss you? Kate said sweetly, sure, you knucklehead, as she caressed Naruto's cheeks and her eyes glistened. With reluctance, Naruto kissed her. Kate slowly closed her eyes. Ugh, why so lovey-dovey, gosh Naruto, you're such a loser, why don't you and Kate go skip under a rainbow somewhere, said Rex, who had recently announced his separation from Eve, spitting in the direction of the clone couple. Even though Rex was uneasy during the intimate encounter and was secretly assessing Naruto, he couldn't help but feel jealous. God, he was such a failure. Damn, he murmured, why was Naruto so slick with his words? Turning to Rex, Kate, Naruto, and Eve said, shut up, their faces as blank as canvases. After that, Kate and Naruto resumed their passionate relationship. Rex's body slumped. He turned to Eve, hoping to continue where they had left off, but she had no compassion and ruthlessly covered his face with a magazine. You ruined the mood, you can hang out with Robot now, she said, waving Rex away, murdering his spirit. Robot was standing to the side, and Rex sulked and sat down next him. Don't worry, bro, Naruto murmured, hurrying up to give him a shoulder pat. I'll be here for you, he said. My bro, Rex answered with a smile. Naruto put his fist out. Rex bumped his fist at his best friend without thinking twice. The two were near the robot, but it was silent and invisible. The fact that you and the other guy battled everyone before we arrived still amazes me. Rex took a sip from a bottle of water and groaned. He shoved Naruto, you could have left some for us to handle, but no, you had to be the tough guy and take everybody out without us, mostly me, in general. Are you still upset about that loser? Said Naruto proudly. Furthermore, I had to get there quickly to stop the invasion so that no more people could be harmed, therefore it's not my responsibility that you were late. I'm not to blame for our tardiness. Glaring at the immobile metal item, Rex remarked, perhaps if someone had provided us a quicker route, we could have made it on time and kicked some alien ass. Rex gave a start when the robot suddenly started toward him. Naruto, Kate, and Eve chuckled. All right, robot, can you learn more about that guy since Naruto doesn't know who he is? I'd like to meet the man who made me famous. Rex glared at them before approaching their purported commander. Our spotlight, Eve said, and I heard it. Sure, babe, Rex responded, waving his lover away before turning to face Robot. He was still stunned by how quickly Naruto and an unknown man defeated the whole army he had read and watched on TV. Yes, he could concede that if it was only Naruto, but the man in the yellow and blue clothing was a stranger. Really, who the hell was he? Furthermore, Rex felt jealous when the newspaper printed out many pictures of the heroes battling the alien invaders and went to great efforts to thank them. It was cool and badass. Even worse, he wasn't included. A newcomer to the field, of sorts, he is also a new hero to the city. In fact, he made his debut not too long ago, Robot said as he combed through his database and retrieved material from multiple news sources. A screen was then projected onto the wall through Robot's eyes. Ooh, a video, Kate raised her head. In the video, a man wearing blue, yellow, and black flew and hit a villain before he could launch a bomb at the cops. The villain was flung through the building after the punch broke his visor. As he watched the villain fly through the building's wall and out the other side, Rex stroked his chin thoughtfully. Before turning to face the television, Robot stated, he appears to have the abilities of flight and enhanced, or superior physical strength, as seen in the video. His robotic vision fell on the young guy, and he said, he dons the hero name, Invincible, to represent his identity. Unbeatable, Eve arched one eyebrow before furrowing her brow. Isn't it a bit cocky? Very conceited, guy must be carrying a pole up his ass or something. Rex said with an attitude. He then watched as Invincible stumbled through his flight while proceeding to knock the blaster through the streets and into buildings. Seems like a total rookie though. Yup, said Kate with her knees crossed, it appears like he practiced, but he lacks much control over his movements, Naruto. The others looked to the teammate who had clashed with the stranger in reality. He's... Naruto pondered what to say. You know what, I have to agree with you on that one. He is a newbie, completely new to combat. He is clumsy for sure, but his strength makes up for it. It is like he has no fighting style, he was just throwing out punches as he flew and went. And besides, look at his outfit. Rex sneered before returning his attention to the screen. Doesn't it look so cheesy? As he analyzed the words, by contrary. I believe that his outfit seems more suitable for combat rather than yours. The robot's gears spun inside of him. What? Does he have bolts for brains too? My outfit is obviously better. Rex turned his head in the direction of their commander. Robot only elaborated on the comparison while enlarging the picture of Invincible's attire. Eve had a startling thought when Robot began outlining some opinions and suggestions regarding how Invincible's attire might have been changed to improve escape and maneuvering. Hey, how about adding this man to our group? Everyone, with the exception of Robot, turned to stare at Eve in confusion as the conversation subsided. Recruit him, Naruto blinked. Eve stood up from the couch and walked to the middle of the room, pointing to the film that was displayed on the wall. Yeah, recruit, she said, adding, I mean, there is nothing wrong with recruiting another member, right? Furthermore, his strength and ability to fly might come in handy for us on missions. But you and Naruto can already fly, Kate said, her expression peculiar. Float, said Naruto. Before settling in, Kate gave her pretend boyfriend the finger. I mean, sure, we could have another team member, but wouldn't that be a little strange? What would make it strange? Have we ever had teammates? Teammates who were temporarily acquainted with us, but your suggestion does seem quite plausible. Perhaps I could send a request to Dash, Robot said. We cannot recruit him. Whoa, 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 Rex exclaimed as he leaped up in his chair and looked about the room. Frowning at her partner, Eve put her hands on her hips and said, why not? Because. Previously known as Kids Team, it is now Teen Team. We started our team when we were young and worked our way up to where we are now. Sure, there were other people on the team, but ultimately, it has always been us. It will be strange if a complete stranger or nobody joins us, don't you think? When Rex learned that his team might be considering hiring a random man who happened to have assisted his brother in the fight, he was shocked. Naruto slapped Rex's back and said, hey, calm down, adding, it was just a suggestion. Rex growled, yeah, a stupid one. Eve scowled, alright, how about we cast our votes? Raise your hands if you support us hiring this man if he doesn't already have a team, Kate remarked during the voting process. Me, Eve said, smiling confidently and lifting her palm high in the air. So do I, the robot said rigidly, lifting an arm. Rex grinned and said, well, looks like Dash, after observing that neither Naruto nor Kate decided to raise their hands after a few seconds. Naruto waved him away, saying, no, I'm still thinking. Rex stammered, you're thinking about it? I'm with you on this one, bringing someone new and possibly permanent to the team is a bit weird for me, he said, turning to Kate, who shrugged. Come on bro, you have to be in this with me. Rex said, turning back to his friend. Do we really need another team member, when you think about it? Naruto cocked his head thoughtfully. He looked around the room. Eve gave him a nod, her mouth moving and her eyes almost indicating agreement. The robot remained silent as usual, but he had already cast his ballot. Kate. Naruto faced her. It's your call now, 2 votes and 2 rejects, whatever you choose, I'll stand by your side, Kate said with a simple smile. In order to prevent himself from embracing her in front of everyone, Naruto essentially forced himself down. He then turned to face his best friend and brother, the one person who was always there for him. That is the best male friend. After thinking about Invincible's performance during the invasion and his resolute look when he rescued the elderly woman from the alien, Naruto said, "I say." And grinned as he decided, "We give the guy a chance." A faint neigh reverberated in the distance from the outside. Underscore 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 underscore